Okie doke.
Look, just to start, when I was researching for this interview, the first article I came across when I did an internet search on your name was an article that was headed, "Why has nobody heard of Harvey Andrews?"
Isn't that lovely?
But I'm guessing after researching more about you, that's a question you don't lose too much sleep over. Would that be right?
Well, it would have been nice, but how can I put it? The business is such that you need a lot of luck to get certain things, and you also need a lot of support to get certain things. And although I got the critics on my side, very much so, in fact, I didn't get through to the public in terms of getting a hit single, which is what you needed to do in the 70s. So without a hit single, people didn't really know you existed in the big world, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. So you sort of made a niche somewhere and just kept on working, which is what I did.
As someone who probably didn't really go out to seek fame and fortune, would you say that you might have made life a little bit difficult for your record companies in those days, wanting to promote your work?
No, not difficult for them. They made it difficult for me. In some ways I did, yes. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew who I was. And for a time, they tried to make me into something I wasn't. And that doesn't work. You have to be who you are. And I wasn't someone who wanted the sort of the glamorous life, you know. I didn't want the car and the big car, and I didn't want the big watch, and I didn't want all that rubbish, really. It never attracted me. I don't know. Money wasn't the prime mover.
Record companies are known to be very image conscious. Were they trying to create an image for you?
Yes, they were. Yes, they did. And I'm just not imageable. I mean, you know, there are pretty boys who are obviously very imageable and work hard at it. Like, let's say David Bowie, for instance. Mm-hmm. And I was with the same sort of company he was at one time. But I just wasn't that sort of person. It didn't interest me. And I didn't want to do it that way. I just wanted to write the best song. That was really the motivation, always. Can I do better than that last song?
So did you reject that vigorously, or were there times where you felt obliged to play the game, so to speak?
I tried to play the game, but it didn't work. It just wasn't me. There was a time, we were put out on tour. That was me and my guitarist, an accompanist and co-writer of some of the songs, called Graham Cooper. And Coop and I worked together for about 3.5 years. And we just did whatever we were asked to do. We got on with it. And we went on tour with Focus, the Dutch group. I don't know whether you knew them out there.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And we thought, well, what are we doing on, you know, a couple of old folkies? Well, we were, 29, 30 then. What are we doing going out with them? But it was a huge success. And I got people who followed me then for the rest of my career. And we did really well. And we thoroughly enjoyed it. But the next thing, we were supporting a Dutch group in Holland who were absolutely terrible, in dreadful venues, and it was just very depressing. So it was sort of very up and down. We also supported the Kinks once, and got amazing reviews at at the Royal Festival Hall in London. And that was great. But without the hit single, you didn't break through. That was the point.
So looking back, what sparked your initial interest in getting involved in music? Was there much musical influence in your family growing up?
No, not really. But it was a very strange time because it was the 50s. I was born in 43. So it was the 50s. And the radio was where you listened to everything. Television didn't come in till sort of the mid-50s. But radio was very, very important. And we had some great shows on national BBC radio. The best of all was on Sunday. It was called Family Favourites. And it was a sort of request show for about 2 hours, I think it was, over lunchtime on Sunday. And everybody had it on. And it played everything. So you were getting a massive education in music without realizing you were. So 1 minute you'd hear Bach, and then a bit of Beethoven, then some Sinatra, then Louis Armstrong, then whatever. And those of us who suddenly appeared in music in the 60s in this country, we soaked it all up. We just soaked it up, and we didn't realize that we were going to make a living out of it, because people generally did not make a living out of music until the advent of the single and the LP in the late 50s, early 60s. And suddenly music became extremely important in people's lives. Pardon me. Became very important in people's lives. And you got people like, bands suddenly appeared everywhere. Everybody was playing instruments, and Skiffle started it. Lonnie Donegan began a lot of it. And then the cheap import of guitars, and people bought them, learnt to play, and thought, oh, well, we can do this. And then, of course, rock and roll had a huge influence on everybody when it erupted in the late 50s. And you had people like, let's say, Paul McCartney. He listened to the same radio programs. We all did. So he listened to it. And you look at McCartney's output. He could write a ballad. He could write a comedy song. He could write a rock and roll song. He eventually ended up writing sort of semi-opera. Largely because he'd soaked up all these various different forms of music without knowing that this was going to be what he became. And that's how we all were. And then suddenly, everybody appeared in the 60s. And basically took the world by storm, musically. It was a fabulous period to be young in.
So when you were soaking up all these various styles of music, who were the first songwriters that were really inspiring you to want to go out and do that yourself?
Me, Buddy Holly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can remember the first time I heard That'll Be the Day. I had been buying records, but I heard this on the radio, and whoa, that's something else. And off I went, and I remember that Christmas I got the first 2 albums, when albums were very rare, the Chirping Crickets and Buddy Holly, and that was it. I was completely hooked. I bought every single the day it came out. And unfortunately, I missed seeing him at Birmingham Town Hall.
Oh.
That was. I had the flu. I never got to see him. But 6 years later, I stood on the same stage and performed in front of my fellow Birmingham people in the first folk concert I ever did in 1964.
Now, you're a school teacher prior to turning full-time professional musician. So was that a difficult decision to make at the time, to walk away from secure employment to venture into the unpredictable world of the music industry?
Not really, because you knew that you could always go back to it, you see. You got your certificate. I did the 1 year teaching to get my full certificate back at my old junior school, in fact. And then I resigned. The headmaster tried to talk me out of it, but it's just something I needed to do. I discovered the folk scene in Birmingham in early 1964. The first club I ever went to was Hill Street in Birmingham, and the first musician I ever saw perform in a sort of folk way was what's his name? Do you remember Keep On Running?
Oh, Spencer Davis.
Spencer Davis.
Yeah.
It was Spencer Davis in a little upstairs room in a pub playing 12-string guitar, a bit like Leadbelly, and I just thought, and I realised I'd basically found my tribe. These were my people, you know. This was what I was interested in. When I was at college, two friends of mine asked me to join a group, and we called ourselves the Ozarks, because that was the last mountain range in the world no other group had named themselves after. And we did sort of skiffle stuff and Woody Guthrie, and that got me interested. And then I found Bob Dylan when I was at college, those first two albums, and they were revelatory. Oh, now then, you can write about politics, you can write about anything. Oh, really? And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a writer. Basically, what I wanted to be most of all was just a lyricist. Somebody just writing the lyrics, because that really interested me enormously. But I was blessed with a very good voice. And I had been in choir when I was at school. First of all as a treble, then as a tenor. And the guy who ran Birmingham Parish Church in the Bullring, Birmingham, for ex-Brummies out there who know the Bullring, St. Martin's, he also was my music teacher at school. So I became a choir boy at the church. And I learned to sing properly. I learned how to breathe. He taught all that really good basic stuff that a lot of people don't learn. And it all came together, and I wrote my first song in 64 when I was teaching, and I was away.
When you started to attract a following there, where would you say your fan base was coming from? Was there a typical Harvey Andrews fan? Where was your audience mainly coming from?
Yeah, I would say so. Basically, well-educated, fairly well-educated, you know, grammar school boys and girls, and just the interested, the sort of the focus of that period, which was the 60s. The ones who'd got into Dylan and people like that, the folk club circuit in Britain was amazing. there were so many clubs, it was unbelievable. And so that in Birmingham, for instance, I could go out and do a little floor spot to try new material or whatever at any one of probably 10 or 15 clubs over a period of a couple of weeks, just in Birmingham alone. Very soon I was going down to London and doing the Troubadour and Bungees and Les Cousins, or Cousins as it was called. And that's when I met people like Paul Simon and Ralph McTell, Al Stewart, all of those. It was very exciting times. And at the same time in Britain, they were building all the motorways. So as the motorway network opened up bit by bit in England, so the clubs became available. You could drive from Birmingham to Leeds, do a club night, and drive back the same night. And so the whole country opened up. And as it opened up, clubs opened up, artists travelled, and there was suddenly this incredible circuit that kept going for 30, 40 years.
Mm. And one of the ultimate compliments a songwriter can receive is other artists covering their songs. Is there any particular cover of one of your songs that's meant the most to you?
Yeah, I think it was Mary Hopkin.
Oh,
she recorded 3 of my songs on an album, and it was really important at that time because my wife was pregnant, and we were living in rented accommodation. You know, we'd started off with nothing and gradually ended up with nothing, as you did when you were young. You were just enjoying life.
Yeah.
And suddenly I thought, we'd better get a house. But getting the deposit was the thing. And I'd signed with Cube Records for my second album, which was Writer of Songs, which was the big bestseller. I mean, still selling today. And I actually went across to a phone box opposite the little flat we were renting, and I found the guy who was looking after me at my publishers and at Cube Records, and I said, is there any chance you could give me a little advance more than you've already given me against Writer of Songs, which I'll be recording very, very soon? Is there any chance you could help out? And he said, well, how much do you want? And I said, well, it's for a house deposit because my wife's pregnant. So, and I named a little sum, and it wasn't much, but it was enough to get the deposit together. And he said, well, how about 3 times that amount? And I said, what? I said, why? He said, Mary Hopkin has just taken 3 of your songs for her next album. So we'll advance you the money against those songs being recorded. And so Mary Hopkin got us our first house.
That's a good story. I like that.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you mentioned Writer of Songs. Of all the albums in your catalogue, that seems to be the one that most people refer back to as a landmark album for you. What are your memories of recording that album and indeed writing that batch of songs?
Well, it just sort of poured out. You know, songs did at that time. I mean, I'd learned my trade. I began to understand what I was doing and why I was doing it, and why I was writing what I was writing. And they put me together when I signed with Cube. I mean, it was a big label because they had T-Rex, John Congos, Joe Cocker, The Move, people like that. And so this was a big London trip, you know, signing contracts, and all this business. But they put me with a producer I didn't know called Johnny Worth. And Johnny, unfortunately, died about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, but John didn't know anything about the sort of music I wanted to do. He had no real idea because he, as a songwriter himself, had written all the Adam Faith hits. So he wrote, what do you want if you don't want money? And all that sort of stuff. And suddenly he was thrown in with me, and I was thrown in with him. But he got a fantastic bunch of musicians together. And I didn't know quite a few of them, but I did know some of them. So I had Ralph McTell, Cozy Powell on drums, and Dave Pegg. And we were all brummies, so we all got on a train together and went down for the session, one of the sessions. And I remember Dave Pegg trying to teach Cozy how to read music on the train. And of course, Cozy went on to become one of the great drummers. And Roy Babington on bass, and this long-haired lad who none of us really knew at that time, who played piano, called, honestly, names at my age, it really gets bad.
That would be Rick Wakeman.
Rick Wakeman, yeah. And there was a moment where John had, we didn't know what Rick was going to do. We had no idea of his real ability. And John explained to him that there was a song I recorded on it, I think it was called Martha. And John said, I want you to come in with a really heavy chord at this point, because he writes really heavy songs, does Harvey. So, right here, bang. So we're up in the control box, looking into the recording room, and there below us is Rick Wakeman sitting at the piano with headphones on, with the backing track. And just before this moment where John had said, come in with a big chord, he came in too early. And I remember John yelling out, too early! And he just did this glissando right the way down the piano. Boom! And there was the big chord. And we both looked at each other, and the engineer who was doing the recording looked at, and we all, pardon me, but we all said, shit, did you get that? And the engineer said, yeah, I got it. And that was sort of first meeting with Rick. It was something else. He was a brilliant pianist.
I don't know if you've seen it, but Rick has just recently posted a video online talking about his memories of that album. He's got a copy of the album on his lap and he's talking all about it. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah, which is nice. Yeah. Good lad. I did a marvellous concert with him eventually. This is about 25 years later, in Peel Castle in the Isle of Man. And it was gorgeous. I did the first part of the concert, and just this mass audience all sitting on the grass inside the ruin of the castle.
Oh wow!
With the sun setting behind them over the sea. Oh, it was gorgeous. It was really lovely. And then I remember walking down into the little town at the foot of Peel Castle, and sitting outside a pub, beautiful evening, sitting outside a pub having a pint after I'd done my spot, and hearing Rick and the band he had then playing in the castle just up the hill. It was paradise. Yeah, brilliant.
So obviously the working relationship with you and John Worth worked well, because you used him again on your next album, Friends of Mine, didn't you?
Yeah. John and I got on like a house on fire. He was a Chelsea fan. I was a Birmingham City fan. So we had football in common. But he was a brilliant producer in that what he did, he just got together a bunch of musicians, and then we worked on things, and people threw in ideas, and he didn't try to boss anybody around. He didn't come the big I am the producer, I am important. He didn't do any of that. It was a cooperative thing from the first album, and it worked. Ralph would say, "Well, I can play this bit and I can do this bit," and so on. And it was a very happy time to be recording. And I think those two albums, they are still the two biggest that I did in terms of sales. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I did 16 albums altogether, and I think I wrote better songs later. But that's me.
Of course, a song out of that era that gained a lot of attention for you and notoriety was the song Soldier. For those too young to remember the circumstances of that song, can you just give us the story behind it, and can you relate to us the aftermath of that song too, which saw it banned?
Oh yeah, it was. It's been a sort of a chain around my neck in many ways. Well, when you look at those two albums, a lot of the songs are about man's inhumanity to man. That's what interested me at that time. I couldn't understand it. I still don't. Does anybody understand 9/11? No. I don't think so, except the fanatics who do it. But man's inhumanity to man, that was it. And what I did when I read the original story was I took that basic story about Sergeant Willits, which was he was one of the very first killed in the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And what he'd done, a bomb had come in through a window of the station, and there were women and children in there, and he'd got them at another side of the room, and he'd shut the door on the room where the bomb had gone in and stood against the door. And unfortunately, a piece of shrapnel hit him, and he died in hospital. But I used that as a story about man's inhumanity to man again. I'd already written one called Hey Sandy, which I think made number 2 or 3 in New Zealand. And that was about the death of Sandy Sher. She was killed in the Kent State University shootings. And of course, we were very, very close to American youth at that time. And the fact that American soldiers could actually open fire on their own young and kill some of them was utterly appalling to think about. And I wrote this song about Hey Sandy, which was a big hit on the sort of the folk circuit in this country. But that's another story. So I put the soldier again, making a sacrifice, a meaningless sacrifice really, against the forces of inhumanity. Now, what got people really angry about that were the people who were, I suppose you'd describe them as the woke of their time, in that the idea that anyone in a soldier's uniform could just do a human act and sacrifice themselves, that they couldn't get their heads around that. They couldn't understand how a guy who could write "Hey Sandy," which was an anti-soldier song, could then, on the same album, write a song that was a pro-soldier song. And all I was saying was, it doesn't matter how you're dressed, it doesn't matter who you are, we're all human beings, and we all suffer from the inhumanity inflicted on us by other people. Mm. That was really what it was about. And the record company wanted to issue it as a single, but at that time, of course, the IRA were causing all sorts of mayhem in mainland Britain. And I had a wife and a young baby, and I cavilled against putting it out as the A side. So it was the B side, and it was discovered in Ireland by a lot of the soldiers, and they started to buy it. And then it was taken up, unfortunately, and this is the problem, it was taken up, unfortunately, by the Protestants as a sort of a pro-British song, which of course it wasn't, and it was never intended to be. And if you read the lyric, you understand that it isn't. But they didn't see it that way, and it would have been, if there's been a chart in Northern Ireland, it would have been number one for about 3 months. And it started off selling 50, and then they started to get orders from one shop for 100, and then 300, and then 500, and so on and so forth. And it was even mentioned in Parliament by an MP who said all MPs should listen to it. But, of course, the BBC banned it. Classic, good old Beeb. They banned it because in those days, you see, there was a panel the BBC had, and they would review the records every week and decide which ones got played. And that was it. If you made it through the panel, then you were made. But the problem was, of course, the new Cliff Richard, no offence to Cliff, but the new Cliff Richard, which might have been a pretty average record, would automatically get through. But your record, they might play the first 3 or 4 or 5 seconds or 10 seconds, whatever, and then no. And that was it. So the BBC banned it, and that was just one of those things. At the same time, McCartney brought out "Give Ireland Back to the Irish,"
yeah,
which was also banned. But of course, McCartney was very, very well known, and it sold an awful lot of copies. But mine sort of was, again, sort of under the radar, but sold an awful lot of copies.
Did that backlash at the time and people misunderstanding what the song was actually about, did it make you a little tentative in future about writing that type of song again?
No. No. I just wrote what I felt.
Yeah.
I always saw myself in some ways, lyrically, as a bit of a sort of, I suppose, a short story writer. It was the short story writers, lyrically, that I really thought were the very best. I mean, Harry Chapin, for instance, a superb writer of story songs. And of course, having come through the folk world, folk songs are story songs. They tell you a story. They talk about a character. They talk about a situation. And that's really what I wanted to write. So they were short stories. And so I would write about anything that interested me at that time. And a lot of the songs I'm still really pleased with. They make sense to me still, and fortunately to a lot of people who followed me for the 40, 50 years.
One of the interesting sidelights of your career, and something probably a little bit out of character for you, is we found you providing the theme song for a cult horror movie, Psychomania.
Oh, I know.
How did that come together?
Well, this was when I was doing Writer of Songs, and Johnny had been commissioned to write the melody for a lyric that was to be put in the film. And we were recording down in London, and he said to me, you can do this. And I thought, what? So I worked out a simple guitar part, and we went to Pinewood. I think it was it Pinewood Studios? One of the studios, anyway. And we went into this little recording box, and they had all this sort of old BBC equipment. I mean, really old mics and stuff. And I sang it once through, and then performed it again, and that was the final take. And then we went into the local restaurant, and there were all the cast in leather. They were bikers, and we found out it was sort of a biker movie. And it was. I went to see it in Broughton on a wet sort of Wednesday afternoon. Me and just a handful of other people. And as the film went on, I sort of sank deeper and deeper in my seat, because it's a shocking film. It's so bad. It had Robert Hardy in it, of all people, earning a crust, I think. But it was a terrible film, and of course I wasn't in it. What they had, because I wasn't a pretty boy, because of the image thing, you couldn't image me. So they had this little pretty boy sitting under a tree, and he mimed to my backing track and to my voice, but he played the guitar as if he was strumming it, whereas I played it finger picking it. So you heard one thing, but you saw another. And it became a cult. And it was shown regularly. It still is shown fairly regularly on British television, sort of late night, 2:00 in the morning thing, And people get in touch with me on my Facebook page and that, and say, "Is it you?" "Yeah, it's me, yeah." Good God. Because it's a terrible song, He really got it on. He rode that big machine just like a bomb. It was shocking. and I mean, they terrorize they apparently find a way of becoming immortal by killing themselves, and then they come back and terrorize the local people. And one of the scenes, they terrorize the local people by driving round a supermarket on their bikes and kicking over cans of beans. I mean, it really is that bad. And at the end of it, names. What's his name? There was a British actor who started, George Sanders. It was George Sanders' last movie, because he committed suicide very soon after seeing the film for the first time. He just said, "I'm bored. I've had enough. and committed suicide.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it was that bad.
I did see a little bit of it on YouTube the other day, yeah, and I totally agree with your critique on it.
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing is a few years ago, guy came over, they were going to produce it on Blu-ray.
Oh.
And a guy came over from America and did an interview with me about how I performed the song and how it was a great biker anthem and all this sort of stuff. And I got the old guitar that I used out of the loft and did a bit for him. And he was blown away. He thought it was utterly wonderful. And it's tagged on the end of the Blu-ray movie. So there's me sitting at home explaining how I came to write the song. And do you know how much I got paid for it?
Not much.
15 quid.
Oh, wow.
£15 and no royalties.
Back in those peak days, did you enjoy the touring process?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Oh, I loved being on the road. I hated British hotels. They're horrible, pokey, converted places that just are not nice. So I would just drive out to a gig. It could be anywhere. I was based in the Midlands always. So London would be about 100 miles away. Manchester, 50. Leeds, probably 80, 90, and so on. Right up to York, I used to go. I would go down to the south coast. And sometimes you stayed with people who ran the clubs. That was nice. But generally, I'd drive back. And because of the motorway system, basically, if you finished at, say, 11 o'clock and you were away by 11:30, you'd have 2 hours when you were fully alert because your adrenaline had been going, and I didn't drink when I was on the road. So 2 hours, you could do 100 miles, 120 miles, and the third hour, you'd start to get a little bit tired. If you went into the fourth hour, you were a risk to yourself and anybody else on the road. But generally, within 3 hours, living in the Midlands of England, I could get back from almost anywhere, and I did. That was how I did it.
And there was a musical you were involved with too called Go Play Up Your Own End. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, that was great. That was a guy who, sort of a local Birmingham comedian and folk singer who wrote this script for a play. He'd written plays before and did pantomimes. And he phoned me up, and he'd been writing while he was listening to friends of mine. And he heard a song in friends of mine, and he thought, I can use that. So he phoned me up and said, can I get permission to use this? And of course I had to tell him that I didn't own the rights to those records. They were owned by somebody else, and he had to negotiate with them. But I said, well, what's it about? And he explained. And of course, it was about his childhood and my childhood and Birmingham that we knew very well. And the story basically was about a street and the characters in the street and how they were thrilled that their houses were going to be compulsorily purchased and knocked down. And they were going to be moved to a wonderful new block of flats at Shard End. And this was going to be wonderful. wonderful because they would have an indoor lavatory and a proper bathroom and all this sort of stuff. Because when I was growing up in sort of Handsworth Aston in Birmingham, we had a tin bath, you know, and very little facilities, and the kludgy was down the yard. So I knew all about this, and I said, well, why don't I write some songs for you and maybe make it some sort of musical play? And he said, oh yeah, all right, yeah, okay. So I did, and it was put on first of all at the Birmingham Library Theatre in Solihull Library Theatre, and I actually appeared in it in a role called Old Man Moore. I never said anything, but I sang and sort of decorated the set occasionally. And it went brilliantly. And the next thing we knew, it was on at the Alexander Theatre. A couple came in and said, we want to put this on. And it was a sellout. And the audience absolutely adored it. And then it went on at the Birmingham Hippodrome, which was fabulous because it was at the Hippodrome that I'd been taken by Mum and Dad. It's the major theatre in Birmingham, the theatre in Birmingham. I'd been taken as a boy to see people like Norman Wisdom and Norman Evans, and you know, in pantomime and everything. And I was brought on the stage at the end of the run, and everybody sort of stood up and applauded. And I had to stand there and take a bow, and I could look up at the seats that Mum and Dad and I used to occupy. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And it was on at the Birmingham Rep as well. It was put on later there. So it actually played in every major theatre in Birmingham, all of them, and never got out because people said, oh, the Birmingham accent. Nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in the Birmingham accent because it is considered one of the worst in the country. But this was before Peaky Blinders. Had we done it after Peaky Blinders, you never know. But we did it before. But in the end, the last one, I think, was, or the one at the Rep, the Alex, it went back twice there. And the last one, Jasper Carrott starred in it. I don't know whether you know him.
Yeah, I know Jasper's well known down here, yeah.
Yeah, well, Jasper starred in it with Dave Willits, who'd taken over from Michael Crawford in Phantom of the Opera. So that was great. So yeah, it was a wonderful piece of serendipity because it was just lucky that it happened. And as I say, luck plays such an important part. Another big thing that happened in the 90s was, did you ever get a series down? Well, you must have done, called Golden Pennies.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I did the theme tune for that. That's the theme song.
Yep.
And it was massive. It went all over the world. It went to Russia. It went all over Europe, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. And that was pure luck because I was then producing my own albums because we'd gone digital. And the thing is, by going digital, it made it possible for artists to make their own albums, not to have to sign away their rights and everything to big record companies, but to really come up with a darn good album, very well made, well recorded, with proper musicians, and own all the rights, which is what I started doing. I launched my own label. And I wanted to get this pianist, a jazz pianist in Birmingham, that I'd worked with and knew very well. And I phoned him up and I said, would you be interested in doing a bit of session for me? And he said, I don't know whether you know this, but I've just been made head of ATV Music in Birmingham. Oh, wow, well done. Top class, big job. He said, just come in and see me and we'll talk about me doing the session. So I went into town a couple of days later, and he was in this plush office. I mean, this was not the usual sort of jazz pianist ambience, if you see what I mean, which is usually a smoky club somewhere. This was a really plush ATV office, and I was ushered in by his secretary, and he was reading this letter. And he looked up as I came in and he said, oh, hello, Harvey. You can do this, which is what John had said to me. I said, what? And he gave me the letter. And it was from the production company that was making Golden Pennies. It was the actress who was in All Creatures Great and Small. Can't think of her name now, but she was the star of it, and she was producing it, her company, and they wanted a sort of a traditional type song to kick it off for about a minute, or maybe 90, maybe less. It might have been just under a minute, but something fairly traditional to set it going while they put the credits up. So I said, yeah, I can do that. And I read the letter and worked out in my mind what they wanted, and I wrote it in the car on the way home in my head. And it was just a very simple little folky thing, which is what they said they wanted. And it was, how did it go? Oh, I'm weary of England, I'm weary of strife. It's time I was leaving to start a new life, 'cause I'm needing a family, a home and a wife. So I'm off to Australia. Yes, I'm off to Australia, 'cause England's so cold. I'm off to Australia, go digging for gold, where there's nuggets as big as your fist, I've been told. So I'm off to Australia. Yes, I'm off to Australia. You see, quite folky.
Yeah.
And I got home and I'd put it down on tape and played it to my wife, and she said, yeah, that's just what they want, because she'd read the letter. She said, that's just what they want, yeah. Now go and write a ballad. I said, they don't want a ballad. She said, go and write a ballad. Every TV series has a ballad. So go and write a ballad and send both in. You think so? Yeah, I do. Yeah, go on, write a ballad. So I went to my room, and I'd got the title of the series. It was called Golden Pennies. And I just started to write this ballad, you see. Golden pennies, see them shining in the sun. Golden pennies, lying there for anyone. Pan the river, and so on. And recorded it and sent it in on tape with the one they said they wanted. And I got a phone call about a week later from Johnny Patrick, the jazz man who was now in charge of ATV Music. And he said, no, it's great, they want it. Oh, good. The folk song. He said, no, they want the ballad. They want the ballad, he said, and they want me to book a studio and get some musicians in and do a proper recording of it. Are you up for that? Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. So, and it was issued as a single on Tower Bell Records, and it was doing all right. It did okay. And again, you can find it on the net, and it's one of the things I'm really pleased about. The singing I do on it, I think it's probably one of my best ever tracks. So I was very pleased with that, and the royalties really were very good because, of course, every time it was played on television anywhere in the world, I had to get paid royalties because I'd written the song.
Very nice.
And done a deal for publishing. So that was really good. That was very helpful.
So these days, Harvey, as far as live performing is concerned, are you officially retired?
I'm 78.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw one or two people just go on a bit too long, and I thought, I'm not going to do that. I remember once seeing Andy Williams on television trying to sing Moon River, and it was such a shame. I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get out while people still want me. And so I was, I think I was 70, 71, 72. And I did a couple of concerts. Lichfield was just a place where I always enjoyed playing. The Lichfield Guildhall, really nice place. So I did two farewell concerts at Lichfield Guildhall in the Midlands, so people could travel from anywhere in the country if they wanted. And I had my son and my granddaughter there, and my wife, and so on, and it was great. And I just thought, yeah, that's it. I'm really happy to have done it that way, because I'd fallen out of love with the road. The traffic was getting just ridiculous, and I wasn't the young man I used to be. So things were getting a little stressful on the road. And I thought, yeah, I'm off. I'm quite happy with everything I've done, and there's a body of work there now, 16 albums. People can get them. People can download them. People can buy them still. I mean, the CDs there's 4 of them still available on my website, which is being rebuilt by my son at the moment, but anybody who wants can go on there and order a copy. Or download some of my albums, yeah, no problem at all. So I just thought, yeah, that's it, I'm done.
You did it on your own terms.
Oh yes, yeah. I've always been that sort of person. When I've finished something, I've finished it, and that's it. It's done. I mean, I've always been a tremendous reader all my life, and I've built up 2 or 3 different libraries on different subjects, and then suddenly thought, right, I know everything I need to know about that now, and I'd sold the library and moved on to the next thing that interested me. I've always been like that. Yeah, interested in a million things, and I think that's so important, particularly as you get older. Keep interested. Keep looking forward to doing this, doing that. Even if you can't physically do it, it doesn't matter. If you can read about it, if you can get involved in something to do with it, that's what I do.
Do you still write and play music at home for your own enjoyment?
No, I actually, believe it or not, I just put the guitar away when I finished, and I've never played it since.
Wow.
Well, I know but that's me. You see.
Yeah.
Basically, it was done. It was finished, and I was happy. And I mean, most people don't carry on their work after they've retired. They just say, right, that's my work in life done. Now I'm going to do other things, and that's what I've done.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Perfectly fair.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. Live in the Shropshire Hills, beautiful surroundings. So fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's a typical day for Harvey Andrews these days?
Oh. Sleep late. Read for about an hour and a half while I'm, before I have breakfast. Catch up on the newspapers. Check them out on the net. Read articles that interest me, and so on and so forth. Go for a good walk in the beautiful countryside. Have a snooze in the afternoon, which is not voluntary anymore. It just happens. Read some more. Catch up with the late evening news. Watch some football. I'm still love my football. And the occasional documentaries, musical documentaries, various odd things that I like to watch, like Polish movies. Don't ask me why. I just like subtitled movies. They seem to deal more in real life than American movies, and I like those. And then get to bed about 1 o'clock in the morning, because I'm still a night owl because of all the years on the road.
Yeah.
So that's about it, really.
Well, sounds like a pretty good life to me.
It ain't bad. I'll settle for it.
Harvey, I'll let you go and have a walk before snooze time. Thank you so much for your time.
Great.
Been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and thanks for all that wonderful music and those great songs through the years. And
bless you.
Enjoy the rest of your retirement.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
Take care.
You too.
And
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Bye.